I want to start this off with a quick podcast note because I've gotten a little bit of feedback that there are some audio issues when we cut away to some of the little blurbs that we're sharing with you. And I just wanted to let you know that we are working on that. So please bear with us. But you guys seem to be enjoying it. So we will figure it out and we will get it right very soon. In the meantime, this episode in particular does not have any, so you don't need to worry about any volume issues. And I appreciate your feedback and giving me the information that can help me to continue to bring the best podcast to you that I possibly can. Hello, everybody. It's me, Virginia, and this is the Living on the Verge podcast. I want to say happy belated Father's Day to all of the fathers out there. If you're listening to this when it drops, then this is the Tuesday after Father's Day. And I'll tell you what we did at our house and in our family. So, I have 4 boys. One of our sons lives in Arizona, and he decided to surprise Dad and at the very last minute told him he was driving in on Friday night to take him golfing Saturday at 6 a.m. So the boys got up and they went off and had a wonderful round of golf, and then both spent the rest of the afternoon chilling on the couch watching the U.S. Open, and capped it off with a sushi dinner. And then on Sunday, the other 3 boys came over. So it was really cool. For the first time in a long time, they were all 4 under the same roof. I think the last time that happened was Christmas. And so one of my sons plays guitar, and he brought a bass over for Dad. So that was really cool to watch their moments, just, goofing around together. My husband's always wanted to play guitar. There's kind of a running joke between he and I that, spans the 30 plus years we've been together. And I'll save that for another time. But my son thought, well, for sure, I could, help him play bass. And I thought that'd be a really cool thing, because if they could learn to play a couple things together, that'd be really fun and certainly enhance our family karaoke nights. So what was on the menu? Well, besides the roasting weather, Dad decided that he was going to smoke tri-tip. And I've always wondered why this is. Like on Mother's Day, moms just want to be completely spoiled and they don't want to lift a finger. While on Father's Day, dads usually like to barbecue or smoke, or it's contrary to what you would think, right? I don't know. Anyway, that's what the call was in this house. We wanted some smoked meat around here, so I made a macaroni salad. I made a chimichurri to go along with our tri-tip. I always make the rub, and one of these days I may share my rub recipe with you. But today I will share my chimichurri recipe with you. And before I do, can we spend a little moment just talking about how excited I am that fruit is back? I saw cherries, apricots, nectarines, plums, strawberries, blueberries. So obviously I made a delicious fruit salad for the family as well. But let me give you my chimichurri recipe really quick. So I take a bunch of Italian flat leaf parsley, a half a bunch of cilantro, 2 tablespoons of fresh oregano, or 2 teaspoons of dried oregano if you can't find fresh. I do 4 cloves of garlic minced, about a teaspoon or 2 of garlic powder, the same with onion powder, salt and pepper to taste. And then I did about 4 tablespoons or so of red wine vinegar and a good tablespoon, you could use more if you'd like, you do that to taste, of chili flakes. So what I did is I take my parsley, cilantro, and I put them in a salad spinner, clean them up. I don't go too crazy because I don't want to bruise them. And then I took off just the hard part of the stem, left the rest of the stem on there, threw it in my food processor, and added the grated garlic to it. Pulse. And then when I got it to the consistency that I wanted, I took it all out of there and I added the garlic powder, the onion powder, the salt and pepper, the red wine vinegar, the chili flakes, and then I drizzled in the olive oil as I whipped it all together. You can adjust it for taste, and I ended up using a little bit more olive oil and a little bit more red wine vinegar. And one of my sons thought it could have been a little bit spicier and would have added a little more chili flakes. I didn't disagree, but I was cooking for a crowd, so I always try to keep things, kind of mellow when I'm doing that. Anyway, that's the chimichurri recipe that I made for the tri-tip, and it was delicious, if I do say so myself. So you could keep this in the fridge and then bring it kind of down to room temp when you're going to use it. I use it on steak. I use it on chicken. I use it on fish. And obviously I use it on tri-tip. So let me know if you try it, because it's one of my favorites for the summer, and it makes it so that for some reason I don't feel like I need to have a heavy potato. I could do like a steak with a chimichurri and a bunch of vegetables, and I'm happy with that. So that was Father's Day. They played ping pong, and it was hot as all get up outside. But all in all, we had a great time, and I hope you did too. My son had to drive back to Arizona so he could be at work Monday morning. One of my other sons had to leave to go to work, and we ended relatively early with the big papa of the group having an amazing day. And that's what it's all about. So today we're going to cover Real Housewives of Atlanta, and we're going to finish off the season of Love Hotel, which I'm really excited to get to. So let's get through episode 15 of Atlanta, The Rebirth. So part 3 of their series in Grenada. Well, the girls start talking about the prior evening, and Angela and Drew discuss Britt's Oscar-nominated performance and declaration of love to Shamea. So they agreed with me. Essentially, Drew and I agree on something, which I didn't think I'd be saying. Wasn't on my bingo card in recapping Atlanta for this season. But there you have it. It was a lot, and the girls were talking about it the next morning. We see Shamea checking on the baby, and we hear Mama telling her that it was a really rough night. And why was the nurse all cuddly and cared for with the blanket and the sweater and the beanie while the baby was freezing cold? I don't understand. And to me, I don't know that I would have aired this. I would have, had I been Shamea, I may have asked for this not to air, just because it's just such a touchy subject. And it's just weird to me how this little bit of Shamea's story is what got aired. I can't help but wonder if there might be something else going on that we yet don't know that's going to come out a little bit later. So allegedly, this might not be done. Let's move on. In other news, Porsha and Cynthia give new meaning to the phrase, "that hat is everything." I'll post a picture of it on my Instagram if you guys missed out on the hat, and we'll get to it all in a little bit. But it deserves an honorable mention right at the very beginning of the podcast. Cynthia, Porsha, and Phaedra are chatting it up, and Phaedra says the tea is that there's an issue with Kelli and Britt because of their stylists. Where do you guys stand with what's going on with these two? It was really subtle, but everybody agrees that Kelli is acting different and not really being a best friend to Britt anymore. I don't know. I noticed it a couple of episodes back where she kind of stopped going to bat with her, and I didn't know what it was all about. We're going to find out in this episode, but if you were feeling it, you weren't wrong. Well, so Kelli is trying to get her thoughts together for a meeting with her attorney, because when she goes back home, she's going to have to face the music and try to bring this divorce that she's been dealing with to an end. And so she leaves the group to go have her meeting. And then Kelli and Britt have a heart-to-heart about the perception with Britt's generosity or lack thereof with the whole Grenada donation thing. And Kelli tells her that she thought it was a little off that here she was bragging about all the plastic surgery that she had for her and her entire group and all those things, but yet she couldn't even feed the people at her event. And she didn't show up when it came to the contributions and the donations. Okay, to me, I don't know if there was any resolution, but that did not seem like a heart to heart. That seemed like another moment that Kelli used to kind of shade Britt on camera. And Britt almost says the same thing. She says, like, I get it if you were going to do all of that, but why wouldn't you have told me on the side? Well, Kelli still maintains that she did tell her on the side, and we just may never know. So we're going to move on. They finally, though, get into what's really going on. And it turns out that Miss Phaedra's tea is pretty spot on. Apparently, according to Kelli, there's a problem with her entourage because Britt wants to steal her entourage. Now, I don't know, but this is a thing in the Real Housewives universe. I was just listening to Two Teas in a Pod, and Tamara said that happened to her at one point where you kind of see your friends in a bind and maybe they're looking a little bit rough. She didn't say this, I am. And, you want to lend them a hand, and your glam team has a little of extra time. And so you say, yeah, go ahead and do her hair, or go ahead and do her makeup. And next thing you know, they're expecting it every time. And if it gets really bad, then they kind of try to steal them out from under you, and you end up becoming second fiddle. So apparently that might be what's causing all of the drama between the two. I don't know. Shamea and Kelli dress in the tribal outfits, and they don't invite Britt. So we know that there's going to be an issue, and we kind of start to see a fissure in the relationship. So it's time to get to like the climax of the Grenada trip, and this is an event that all of the girls are attending called the Job Job. And Job Job is a character, it refers to a character, but also to a tradition. And this is a tradition in Grenada that's deeply rooted in the Caribbean Carnival culture. And so it's a masquerade where participants dress like devil-like figures, often covered in black oil or paint, adorned with horns and chains, and sometimes carrying whips. So the name Job Job comes from the French patois, diable diable, meaning devil devil. So it's a powerful symbol of resistance, freedom, and cultural identity originating from the traditions of enslaved African in the Caribbean. So apparently it originated during slavery as a way for enslaved Africans to basically mock their oppressors and be able to express that they were resilient people in spite of their oppression. And it also represents defiance and freedom and the celebration of just the African Caribbean identity. And it was like a reclamation, a sense of self-power. And so Job Job is a very significant part of Spasimas Carnival, particularly during Juve. Juve is the start of Carnival, and it's a powerful symbol to Grenadian culture and history and resilience. And the music of Job Job is usually very powerful and energetic, but it's really important to note that Job Job is not associated with evil in any way or with any demonic culture or anything like that. It's basically just a celebration of freedom and the ability for the people to be able to find joy despite the hardships that they endured. And so that is the celebration that the girls are attending. And before we jump into Job Job and kind of the craziness of it all, let's talk real quick about Kelli and Drew and how funny it was that they were comparing how many divorce attorneys their soon-to-be exes have gone through. So the answer is 9 between the two of them so far. And then they discover another weird irony, and that is that they both shared a wedding anniversary. So that brings to mind the question, are you guys superstitious? Like, do you worry about the black cat that crosses your path, or not staying on the 13th floor? Well, we know that a lot of hotels don't even have the 13th floor, so some hotel owners are clearly superstitious. But where do you stand on all that? Because the word on the street is nobody should get married on the date that these two share an anniversary, given their turbulent, tumultuous, and highly public divorces. Porsha announces as they're laying out that she has a surprise, and she runs off. She calls Shamea to go with her, and out comes Shamea with the big announcement from Porsha to do a photo shoot in the humongous hat that I talked about at the beginning of the podcast. Like, words really cannot describe the fabulosity of this hat. It looks like one of the huts that we sat under in Aruba, and was probably almost as big, not as heavy because it was kind of flippy floppy, but it covered Shamea clear down to, I would say, almost past her knees for sure when it was down. I caught some pictures of the photo shoot. I'll post them on my Instagram so that you could entertain yourself with the fabulousness of this hat. I don't even know that the girl needed sunscreen with this one, but I did think it was really sweet because Porsha loves a moment. So for her to give it up to Shamea, given, the hurt and the pain that she was going through regarding being away from Shiloh, what a good friend. Good job, Porsha. Way to come back from the crazy of earlier this season. I'm glad you guys are on the mend. I'm still a little bit concerned about some of the comments made on Watch What Happens Live, and not sure what this says about where you guys are, like, current day, but I guess I'll have to watch like everybody else. And I really feel bad for Kelli. I mean, on the one hand, she always has a glam team, and she's always, looking super gorgeous at all times. So she doesn't struggle when it comes to fashion and the material things in life. But, what does it really mean when we hear her having to talk to us about having to be strong, and the fact that she is going through so much, and she's gone through so much with her ex? He hasn't made anything easy for her, but she puts on a strong front. It just kind of shows you that this little dynamite is, really a strong girl, and I don't envy what she's had to go through. So, sometimes the best handbag in the world can't take away the pain of life's realities. Well, the girls all get ready for the job. The attire is black, apparently swimsuits, mostly thong, and covered with mesh cover-ups, if you want to call them that. And so they all head out to the event. I'm not shading. I'm just pointing out that the Atlanta girls, they march to a drummer of their own making when it comes to the fashion. And I'm not going to be mad at it. It's funny because the girls do point out that Shamea may want to change her $3,000 Chanel boots because they're probably not going to make it out of the event alive. And I didn't notice if she did. I don't know. Maybe it was because I got all distracted with the black oil and the dance and the music and the fireballs and the hats with the horns and all of the wiggling and all of the jiggling of the skin. And honey, I have not seen that much ass in a while, but it was all out there for God and everybody. And it looked like a happy, happy moment to me. If I'm being honest, they were celebrating resilience and just that spirit of joy. It comes across a little aggressive, I'm not going to lie. And I'm, glad that they took the time to explain it, because it could have actually come across as something dark when in fact it's not. It's a beautiful moment that they celebrate during Carnival. And I could tell you though, once they got on that truck and they started doing shots and things started getting very spicy, that one point where Phaedra's laying back and that one dude with the horns all oiled up with the tongue and all the things is, Phaedra's shouting she thinks she got pregnant. And this guy's walking around doing this to all of the girls that will let him anyway. It seems to me like this would never go in the United States. This guy would probably have been arrested for the moments, but hey, nobody was complaining. Everybody had a good time. So who am I to complain? I'm just kidding about the whole thing anyway. Well, back at the resort, the remnants of Job Job are everywhere. The oil in their body hasn't necessarily, been taken care of yet. And there's a whole conversation about it. So Britt tells us that she's seen every crevice of Phaedra, and Phaedra absolutely agrees, telling her that, she bent over and cleaned her crack and all the things. I mean, listen, to me, it's too much information, but I have a question. Do you guys have that one person that has seen every crevice of your body during all your worst moments? And who is it? Is it a friend? Is it a family member? Is it your partner, your spouse? Or do you just not do that? Just curious. Let me know if you want to in the comments, or you could DM me, or you could just answer it in your head and we can just move right on along. At breakfast, Kelli tells a story of how after meeting with the attorney, she was crying and holding onto the crystal and it fell and it broke right in half. She Googled it and found out that it signifies the end of a relationship. Well, I have that very same crystal, and at one point in my life, it sat under my bed, and one of these days I may tell you the story behind that, so you'll just have to keep on listening. Well, in walks Porsha, and she's saying she's probably still drunk from last night, but she tells us that she had a really wonderful time, and it was exactly what she needed. And if I'm being honest, it seems like it was exactly what they all needed. The girls all walked Kelli over to the beach to release the broken crystal. And it does seem that they were able to relax and reset and renew after all. But then, 72 hours later, back in Atlanta, we are taken to Kelli telling us that she's not divorced yet and that her husband went to jail today. Angela asked Kelli how she and Britt are doing, and Kelli says she hasn't spoken to Britt since Grenada. And then we hear Phaedra dropping the tea. Okay, as an aside, I'm going to interject that, in my opinion, Phaedra is almost always spot on with her tea. But allegedly, according to Phaedra's tea, Angela's husband is allegedly cheating. So could it be editing? Well, I guess we're going to have to stay tuned. And that's how the episode ends. And we think it's the end of the season. I don't know. It's really gray. But there is a episode 16 coming next week. And then maybe the reunion. I can't seem to find any solid answers one way or the other. It seems to be that the season's wrapping up. I am not unhappy about that. I am excited to cover the reunion because we all know that Britt Eady is now suing Bravo for $20 million for all the alleged stuff. And we know that she was a no-show at the reunion and that Kenya got uninvited. And I can't help but wonder if Bravo would have done something differently if they would have known that Britt was going to be a no-show. And also whether or not there'll be any postscripts given the current events of it all with the lawsuit and everything. So I'm excited to cover that, but I'm ready for this season of Atlanta to end. I'll save all of my overall view of the whole entire season and my thoughts on the cast members or the housewives, if you will, for when I know for sure that this is all over. But it's almost done, I think, guys. So let's talk about episode 8 of The Love Hotel. Well, it's the finale. We're finally here. It's going to happen. We're going to be done with Love Hotel. And I loved this little show. I really did kind of like it. So I'm kind of sad it's going away. And I think that over the summer, I'm going to do some like polls on Instagram about who we want to see on upcoming seasons of The Love Hotel, because I kind of think it's a no-brainer for Bravo to bring this back. So if you're listening, Bravo, I think that you guys might want to continue to do this. I think it might not be a bad look. It was a fun little show. It was short and sweet and simple. It took us out of the dark of all the crazy arguing, and it gave us a little bit of a different perspective and view on the housewives. Like, we didn't see them throwing drinks or flipping tables or any of that kind of stuff, but we got to see how they operate in a different habitat, if you will. So let's get into it. The cliffhanger from last week leaves us wondering what Shannon was so upset about. Remember? Well, as we get back to this season, Joel is talking to the two about their communication style, to Earl and Shannon, and trying to find out whether they can move on from this. And they kind of get into it a little bit about, what went wrong. But then Earl and Shannon decide, like, let's just table it and try to enjoy it, because this whole thing is wrapping up and we only have another day. So Joel brings the group together and tells them all that whoever is not invited to the upcoming overnight dates will be leaving. So the girls end up having to select their choices. So we know that Shannon chooses Earl. No surprise there. And Gizelle chooses to go out on a date with Phil, but she tells Joel that she's not ready to make a decision yet, and she wants to keep Theo around because she'd like to split her time. And Ashley does the same thing. She wants to split her time between Ralph and Wale. And then, of course, Luann picks James. So it's date time. Phil and Gizelle head to the spa. Ashley and Wale head out to the water. Shannon and Earl jump on a horse. And Luann and James start off at dinner. Well, with Shannon, it seems it's not going so well, you guys. I feel like she has lost her spark. While Phil, on the other hand, he seems to be going all in and making all these declarations to Gizelle. And then Gizelle does kiss him, even though it was just a peck. But she does tell him that she wants to have some time with Theo and she wants to be fair to the process. And Phil is just a class act, and he says he can understand and respect that. And he graciously, steps back. So then Ashley and Wale are on a boat, and Wale at one point blurts out that he loves her. And she's a little taken aback, but flattered, of course. So then later on, the two sit in the hot tub and they finally discuss Ashley's marital situation. And Ashley's mind blown that it's taken them this long to get to this conversation. But Wale is basically concerned that he doesn't look like Michael, her ex. Well, no duh. Ashley says she has a type. It's people who are smart and take care of their bodies. But she does not discriminate on age, gender, or ethnicity. I find this very refreshing, and when it comes to your dating life, hats off, girl. Sorry about that. Because if you ask me, the more open you are, the more apt you are to find your person out there in this world. And that is a lesson that we people in my generation and those that, I just think that people are very refreshing these days, in that you don't feel like you have to marry your high school sweetheart or the first person that had a job after you got out of high school. Y'all are taking your time, you're properly vetting these people, and you're choosing yourselves in a lot of cases over a toxic relationship or the person you're supposed to be with. Hell yeah, you guys. I think that that's amazing. And so, in this regard, I think Ashley's pretty great. But when it comes to the fact that she keeps, going back and forth between the two, I think she's not being very fair to Wale, because he's been all in to the Ashley verse since jump. But nonetheless, the next morning, Ashley still wants to have brunch with Ralph, and she tells Wale that, that's what her plan was. And so at the brunch, she tells Ralph that they did cuddle, but they didn't get physical, and Wale left after about an hour. And then Ashley and Ralph start to have a discussion about whether or not they're ready to be in a committed relationship. And she tells us that she really appreciates Ralph's life experience. And Ralph tells her, well, I'm just not easily rattled. And, he is just looking at her with those googly eyes, like, I don't know. In a way, I don't mean to be mean, but it kind of comes across like, remember in the cartoons when they would show the picture above your head, like if it was like the Scooby cartoon, and it would be the picture above in the thought bubble of the big steak? That's the look that I get the impression that Ralph is feeling in the moment. And it's a little ewy. But that's just my opinion, so let's move on. Luann and James discuss their long distance relationship and how things are going to go. Well, if you ask me, James seems way more optimistic than does Luann, but Luann does, seem more engaged than I thought she was going to be. And then James, of course, solidifies his declaration and, recommits and says that he's in love with her. And then they head back to the room. And the next scene we see them, James is giving Luann this ridiculous foot massage with oil all over the place, and it's on his face, and she's sticking her toes all over his face and his chest. And I don't know, I didn't think I needed to see all of that, but I think Luann just loves the attention, and James might be the perfect guy for her because he is willing to, it appears, spend the rest of his life commuting back and forth between Hawaii and New York to fawn all over the Countess. Gizelle and Theo head out to dinner, and she really seems to like Theo's confidence. Like, if you look at her face, she lights up, and the approach is the same too. Gizelle likes that Theo has kids, and she could still mother them. What are your thoughts about this? It seemed a little bit weird. I get it as like an empty nester. I understand. There's that time where you kind of feel lost and confused and purposeless because everything you did day to day that made you everybody and everything that you were for years is suddenly just gone. And so it kind of messes with your identity for a little bit. But I don't know that I would want to immediately jump into mothering someone else. It seems a little bit codependent to do that. That's just my opinion. And you could always come to the Living on the Verge podcast for my opinion. Earl and Shannon head to the presidential suite. And they have dinner in the suite, and Shannon is hopeful. I don't know. Why did they get the presidential suite? Was it because she was all in on Earl from jump? I don't know. But she does get a little chinky-eyed. And having known Shannon from all the years of having watched her on Orange County, this means she's a little bit buzzed. But they're talking, and she tells him, like, she just cannot have things work out like they've been working out, that they need to do better with their communication. And Earl confesses that he just does not like to tell people that he needs them. And I know people like that, but if you're one of those people out there, honestly, the best way to get what you need is to tell the person what you need, because people do not live inside of your head. We can only get from you what you give to us. And that is why the best relationships, the most successful relationships, aren't necessarily the ones that are always happy. They're the ones that have the best communication, where I can tell you if I'm not happy with what you're doing, if you've hit a boundary, if you've made me extremely happy by your behavior. Just communicate. That is honestly what I have found to be what is the key to having a more successful relationship. And so they agree to do so, and they each apologize to one another, and they recommit. Well, we're at the final get together, you guys. Joel asked about all the overnight dates. Earl and Shannon said they had a lovely night. Luann tells us James is packing. Thanks, Luann. Of course, we could not have completed the season without knowing exactly what size James's appendage was. I feel complete now. Ashley tells us she's still conflicted. And Gizelle tells us that, well, she tells everyone that she kissed Phil, but she tells the girl she's still torn. And she kind of alludes to the fact that she thinks that she and Phil might be in different places, that Phil might be too old for her. And even though he is the safe choice, that might be precisely what the problem is. Shannon tells us she's glad she spent the night with Earl because she didn't want to end things when they were arguing. And now she said she needs to be careful because she does not want to lead him on. Well, again, my observation is Shannon has the chinky eyes again the next morning. And having seen Shannon brag about days with previous partners when she was all about talking about her escapades, even though she's always been quite reserved, there was a moment in time on Housewives where she was very happy to tell us that she had had a great night, and she had that same look on her face. So maybe that's why she didn't want to lead Earl on. I don't know. But Shannon says that she is very much in love with Earl, basically. She says she loves him, and she doesn't know why. What do you think? Well, Luann and James, they know their obstacle is going to be the distance. And so now it's time to get ready for our final meeting. And so how it works is Joel brings the two of them together. It's kind of like a bachelor moment, like the rose at the final rose. And they get together, and then he walks away, though, and, he lets them have their moment. So, of course, Luann asks James to check out with her. That's not a surprise. And it's time for Gizelle's decision. And listen, before I tell you who she chose, I just want to shout out one more time whoever was styling Gizelle for this show. Her glow up has been everything. I think she looks gorgeous. This woman has always been beautiful, but if you watched her back in the old RHOP days, she had some rough moments when it came to fashion. And so whoever you're using, keep it up. You looked gorgeous. Anyway, Gizelle tells Phil that they're in different places in their life. And instead, she checks out with Theo. I didn't see it coming. I thought she was going to choose Phil because, the house in Bel Air, the lifestyle, the double R's. I don't know. Maybe it was the edit that was trying to make her come across as more materialistic than she really is. But wait for it. Let's keep going. Shannon and Earl leave together. Yippee! Not so fast. There's more there too. And then there's Ashley. She does not pick Wale. But then she breaks down. She's crying. She's thinking she may have made a bad choice. And then she sits down with Ralph and she goes around and around and around the long way to ask Ralph to leave with her. Boo! I was Team Wale. So we have the wrap up, and Gizelle and Theo are supposed to get together for Halloween. Remember they were talking about that at their date? But apparently Theo lost his phone and they never did connect. So she's still messing with Phil. Poor Phil. And I guess she plans to visit him in Bel Air. Of course she does. I told you guys. Will we see more of Phil on Potomac? And can we spend just 1 second talking about how is it that they just completely lost touch because he lost his phone? Okay, I'm going to call bullshit on this because we all know that if they really wanted to get a hold of one another, all they had to do was reach out to production or one of the other cast members. And from the relationship that Theo had with people on the resort and during the show in the hotel, I'm certain that he had phone numbers for other people and that he has since connected with them. There's no way in the world you're going to tell me he hasn't. So I find it highly sus that all of a sudden, he loses his phone, so that's how it ends. But if that's what you want to sell us, I'll go ahead and buy it because I like this show. And god damn it, I knew it. My Shannon is single. I was really, really hoping. So when I saw her at the boot scootin', I thought, okay, well, she's filming for Orange County tonight. So even if she is still with Earl, I don't think she would bring him tonight. However, given that not everybody was here at the filming and this won't come out until after we find out whether she stays with Earl, maybe if they were together, he would be here because he would be filming on Orange County. Well, mystery solved. She and Earl apparently visited one another for a while, but they decided they weren't each other's persons. Producers tell us that Ralph wasn't the daddy to solve Ashley's daddy's issues. Well, no kidding. And so they've since broken up. Maybe because he looked at her like a piece of steak. I don't know. I would have to really dig deep to find out what ended up happening with Ashley and Ralph, because that one is the one that intrigues me the most. I'm curious to find out why it went south. You may remember she said that like their kisses weren't all that good and that he gave her lizard. Was it physical? Was it the distance? Did it end up being the age? Was it that he looked at her like a piece of porterhouse? I don't know. Well, Luann and James are still very much in love. This is the mind-blowing, like, aha, who the hell knew moment of this entire show. First of all, the fact that they were able to keep it under wraps is superb. It fares very well for this franchise. I think that if we would have known how it ends and who ends up with who, it probably would have, not gone over as big. But are you kidding me? Luann is the one out of all of them who is still with James, like current day, today. I think there's way more to this. Remember, I was telling you about my source and no, there's more to this. So I'm going to find out. I've already started to do some digging, and apparently it is true. Like, they are still together. And I don't know if that has anything to do with the ring, but she says that she does have a serious boyfriend. She said that when she told us all that she wasn't engaged, when that photo went viral on Instagram of her in Sag Harbor. So who knows? But wow, that was the like jaw-dropping moment for me out of this whole series. And I really enjoyed it. I hope that there'll be a season 2. I will post a poll and we'll see who we think should be on season 2. But that wraps it up for the Love Hotel. So I have a couple of quick things to cover. And the first is my Disneyland update. It's been a while since I've given you guys any Disney news. So let me give you a quick update on what's going on at Disneyland these days. So we're, of course, talking about Disneyland in California, the Disney Resort, and it is their 70th anniversary in 2025. So they're going to have special events and special merch, of course, like they always do. And they have special entertainment. But we also know that Downtown Disney is getting a little facelift and it continues to transform. We have Disney's Wonderful World of Sweets and we have the Parkside Market. It's got that throwback, like old school feel. And it reminds me of my childhood memories of the monorail. So if you know, you know, otherwise look it up. Well, construction is also underway for the expansion of the Avengers campus at DCA, California Adventure, to those of you who are not in the know. And there's a new Coco attraction plan near Paradise Gardens and Pixar Pier. I'm super excited. Coco is one of my favorite movies. And guess what? Let's talk about a few other things that are coming. Well, first of all, the celebration is supposed to last from It started in mid-May, and it is going to go on all the way through summer of 2026. So you have plenty of time to visit. But there's going to be ride changes and treats and special character appearances. So make your way there at some point. And for those of you looking for a bargain, I say that with a grain of salt. We're talking about Disneyland, but they're offering low price multi-day tickets for visits from May 16th to August 14th of 2025. So go on Disneyland Resort and see what you can get. Maybe you can get a break and go see Mickey. And then we know that the Earl of Sandwich is relocating to a temporary spot before it settles in over at Parkside Market. They're redoing that. And I hope I'm still able to get my like pregame Bloody Marys there, because that was like my routine. I would get off the tram and I would head over to Earl of Sandwich, walk straight into the bar, maybe grab a burrito for breakfast, maybe not, maybe just grab a Bloody Mary. And then I would head into DCA and start my day. And now I'm going to have to go all the way to the back. Wow. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to amend my routine at DCA, but that is neither here nor there. So let's talk a little bit about the Avengers Campus expansion. We're going to have a new attraction, Avengers Infinity Defense and Stark Flight Labs. Yay, I love that. One of my favorite is Stark Enterprises. And we know that if you've been there any time since early spring, the red trolley's gone, and that was necessary because of the expansion that's coming. So that was sad. If you never got to ride the red car trolley, then you missed out because you can't anymore. But Walt Disney is going to promote and debut The Magical Life at the Main Street Opera House, and it starts on July 17th, so that's something to look out for. And of course, Oogie Boogie Bash is going to be back this year from August 17th through October 31st. And Disneyland After Dark, we're in the middle of Pride. I think it ends on the 18th, and I am recording this on the 17th. So you guys have one more day. Go to Disneyland tomorrow if you want to do Pride. Actually, who am I kidding? I'm sure it's sold out. Anyway, shout out to those of you who are able to go to Pride Night. And the Tiki Room is undergoing a refurbishment and will have some animatronic repairs. So we'll see what that is. A lot of people like the Tiki Room. Not really my cup of tea, but this makes me happy. The big wall that Adventureland was like hiding behind, it's been removed. And apparently there's a new water feature. So I need to get back there because I haven't been there to see this. And finally, well, that wraps up our Disneyland update. I'll bring you another Magic Key update the next time I go. But let's talk about, as we close off this podcast episode, let's talk about the Temecula Valley Balloon Festival that is coming this weekend, June 20th to 22nd, 2025. And listen, there is so much that is going on with this wine festival. It's a 3-day festival, and of course you can have balloon rides. You need to go onto the Hot Air Balloon app. It'll run you $189 to $279 per person for starters, and that's for a group hot air balloon ride. I believe they say it disembarks at 6 a.m. On the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, weather permitting. Of course, follow up on the website for, last minute and up-to-date information. But Friday is headlining Walker Hayes. Saturday, Cody Jinks is there. And Sunday, we have Alabama. General admission tickets for 3 days will run you $299, while a one-day pass will run you $109. You can't go in and out with those passes. So if you want to do that, then you have to pay $250 for a one-day pass and $575. That's their mid-range pass, but apparently it gives you like some other bells and whistles. And then of course they have camping packages. Parking will run you $35 for the day, $99 for the 3 days. And it looks like it's going to be a warm weekend, so dress appropriately and, of course, stay hydrated. And I hope that if you attend, you have a lovely time. Post photos and tag Living on the Verge podcast so that we can see what y'all were up to. And I really hope that you have enjoyed this episode of the Living on the Verge podcast. We are going to be starting to talk about our travel series since we've wound down I Love Hotel and we're almost done with Atlanta. We're getting ready to jump into some travel because you may remember Europe is on the agenda. So we are going to be going to France, Spain, Italy, Monaco, and Tunisia. We'll be at airports in Germany, but that doesn't really count. All of that to say it'll be 6 countries, 2 continents in 15 days, and I'm excited to cover it all for you guys. So we will be getting to that series later on in the summer, but we have some really exciting things coming up. So I invite you to stay tuned for the next episode. We'll be back on Friday. Have a good week.